Is it going to come tomorrow? Is it going to come next week? No, the time for justice, the time for freedom, and the time for equality is always right now.
You're listening to another Perspective Talk Show.
Hello. This is Sam, a.k.a. Lucy Bones.
This show is brought to you by Rebirth Radio.
Something said, something done. Within the community, feeds into the stereotype, feeds into the prejudice.
Shadow. Radio.
I think more community involvement could be beneficial in teaching people about budgeting, income, and how to save, and multiple streams of income. And
you're listening to another Perspective Talk Show.
Hello. This is Sam. I am a contributor with Rebirth Magazine, now Rebirth Radio, and the author of Dear Black People. Today's show is going to be about communication and destructive language within the Black community. Now, I'm here to tell you that this show is going to upset some people, maybe offend some people, rub you the wrong way. Good. It's meant to do that. Because it's all about shining a light and reflecting on some of the things that might contribute to some of the negative things and negative stereotypes that are happening in the community. Now, I know this is not exactly fun to hear about, but it is controversial, and we're going to stick with controversy for this show. Communication can be any number of things. It can be nonverbal, it can be posture, it can be your clothing, artwork on your skin, the way you walk, the way you talk. It can be how you're talking, the words you use, any movement that accompanies your language, and it can be direct as well as indirect. And I'm telling you, people, my beloved, there are some things that are being said in the Black community by Black community members that are harmful within the community. It's almost like every time the Black community gets a step foot forward, something said, something done within the community tanks it, feeds into the stereotype, feeds into the prejudice. Now, I'm going to start with some of the women. Women, please, it's not personal, but there are things you say, like, there's no good Black man, and if he a Black man, he got to have X, Y, Z, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. Man, you're not going to find something in someone all the time. People are going to disappoint you. They're going to fail. They're not going to hit all of the check marks on your list. That's not what life is about. Life doesn't happen like a checklist. If the dude is good to you and he offers you some of the things on the checklist and is working on others, he's a good man. Now, I hate using the term good or bad because we all have good and bad within us. So it only takes the perfect storm or the right thing to turn someone from good to bad. And it takes the right amount of love, the right amount of help, the right amount of support and encouragement to change someone who is bad to good. And we're dynamic. We're not static. So saying good and bad is relative to societal's definition of the word good and bad. Man, women are like, I'm going to be in control. I'm going to run this household. I don't need him because he ain't no good. He's not doing me the way he needs to do me. Okay, sis. Well, what's he doing? What's he doing that's so wrong that y'all can't work it out? And why are you not letting the man lead? That doesn't mean he gets to boss you around, be controlling and abusive. It means let him take control of the direction of the relationship. You can hope in your heart and have goals in your mind and have the conversations, but let him take it there. Let him be the one to guide the relationship there. Because ultimately, if you want a successful marriage as the outcome, you are going to have to let him take those big steps. He's going to have to be ready. Because sis, I know you entering in it already wanting that ring, but you're not going to get it. Not if you continue to almost be a bully, but you're not a bully, but almost to that point. In the man's mind, you're coming on too strong. You have to soften it up a little. And some of the things you tell the black men in the community are not very nice. Now, I can understand if the man's abusive or, he's been living off you for years and he's never tried, never done anything, never tried to do anything, doesn't have any goals, dreams, nothing. He just expects you to be that person to support him. But your relationship is okay. Or maybe he's that abusive type and he just wants you to work and give him all the money and that's how he controls things. You can make the changes in your relationship. Don't ever stay in an abusive situation for the sake of a relationship. But also, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If he's just going through a hard time or if he can't see his value at the moment, sisters, it's up to us to communicate that to him. Communicate his worth, encourage him, uplift him, affirm him. Ask if there's anything we can do to help him get where he's going. Because we're a piece of his journey, right? So, and brothers, young people too, I'm here to tell you some of the language that's going on in the community, some of the violence. It is not okay for a white person or non-black community member to be prejudiced or racist against blacks and act on that in any way, shape, or form. Institutional racism, no. None of that. Systemic racism, no, none of it is okay, none. But I'm here to tell you that in spite of the wrongly indoctrinated folks out there that interact with the black community in a negative way, the black community interacts back just as negatively and acts worse within its own community. Most racist people, I had discussions with some of them, and they weren't pretty because I don't subscribe to their thinking. But they made one point that had me sit and think and really reflect on the things that I know, the things that I see, the things that I experience from others in the community and watching others experience things within the community, family members, friends, my own children. And the one thing that they said that kind of stuck to me like glue was, we really don't have to do anything to the black community because there's things going on in the black community itself where the community will implode. If the problem's going to take care of itself. And some people, sadly, believe this to be a fact. And why do they get that? Because the communication from the community as a whole, as they see it, is that black people hate each other. They're killing each other. They're fashioning gangs just to be territorial, set up control, and harm, shoot, kill, name each other and family members. And it just goes on and on. The retaliation list never ends. The vengeance never ends. And then you got young people cussing and saying all sorts of words that have a negative connotation, that don't really belong in the vernacular of the black community, yet it's still accepted widely amongst the black community amongst the black community members to one another. But if somebody else said it, it's their head, right? You shouldn't even be saying it to each other. What you're communicating is that you have been indoctrinated with this language for years and years and years, and it's still a part of your vocabulary. It shouldn't be. It's insulting. It ties back to slavery, these words. But people running around talking about, and I'm going to use a different word that may sound like it. Do not think that I'm saying this word, ladies and gentlemen. It is not the word. Ninja this and ninja that. Man. And then their pants are sagging, and they're rough and tough, and they're unsteady, and they're always moving, and they got big hand gestures, and they're loud, and they're cussing. That is aggression. What people read from the behavior of that is aggression, folks. That's aggression. So when people that aren't in the black community interact with somebody or observe somebody communicating this, they see aggression, violence, clutch my purse, lock my doors. They don't see, okay, this is a human being. This is just normal people doing normal things. No, they see it as aggression. So people get afraid when people are aggressive. And now I'm not saying that's right, because people really should take the time to assess the situation, look at circumstance, get to know the person. I'm nosy, and that's one of my downfalls, because I communicate a great need to fix things from myself. That's what I communicate. And sometimes it's to my detriment, right? Because I saw a white woman get beat on by a black man in the wintertime at a bus stop with their baby in a stroller with them. And so my son was with me. We stopped the car. We went to go ask questions to both of them, like, hey, man, why did you hit her like that? What is going on? It is never okay to put your hands on somebody. If it gets to that point, you need to take yourself somewhere and sit down. And then I saw the problem. The man was respectful. He admitted to doing what he did, and he said he's sorry for it, and he don't normally do that, but he felt pressed into a reaction by this female. And then I saw the female. She kept pursuing him, nagging him, trying to push him, trying to get into the conversation and take the conversation to her side. And I wasn't budging because I could see her behavior. I could see what was going on in her. I could see the nagging and the fight and the chaos and the pull to try to pull him into this argument in this negative place. And I had to tell her, she said, our 2-year-old is in the hospital, and we just had this other baby, and we're really stressed out right now, and, he said that he doesn't think it's a good place for the baby to go sit all day, so he wants to take the baby to his family's house so that we can go, and he doesn't want to stay all day with our baby. He thinks we should go and come back. And I think we should sit there every minute of every day. And she said the baby's been in a coma for 8 months after a car accident. And that's why they're taking the bus, because the car was totaled. And I sat back and I said, look, just because you have this stress going on, it doesn't mean you get to treat your partner, and this goes for both of you, with hate, disrespect, disregard. If this is how you two interact, it is wise to consider either a change in how you interact and communicate, or maybe go your separate ways and just do your duties as mom and do your duties as dad and figure out a way to make it work without having that relationship between you. Because this is going to land someone in jail. And then the man came in and he said, yeah, She assaulted me. I was bleeding, I had bruises, I had red marks, and she didn't have a mark on her. I kept stepping back. Somebody called 911 and reported it. And apparently what she did is she called 911 with the phone in her hand at her side. She had it pre-dialed when they started to fight. She put it down to her side. She pressed call. And then when she was hitting him, she kept saying, ah, she was yelling things to indicate that he was hurting her. Who went to jail, even though there was physical evidence that he was harmed and she was not. He went to jail. And right then and there, I said, you know what? This relationship is volatile. I'm going to tell you this. Either y'all need some serious help or you're doomed. This is my downfall. I interfere. So now back to other community members interacting with the Black community and seeing these aggressive things. I didn't blame the man. I didn't blame the women. But what I said to both of them is this is essentially not okay. What's going on here? Because it's never okay to put your hands on her. I didn't see her do anything to him until after I stopped, and she just kept on, right in front of the baby, which I found insane. But I had to get on the bus, and I had to go on to the hospital. And he said he was going to wait for another bus and go separately and just go on to his parents' house because the baby shouldn't be out on the bus riding buses. It was below zero that day. And then he would go on to the hospital and see her there. But man, my issue is people don't take the time to get to know community members. They see something and immediately they put a wall up, a block up, or maybe they've had a negative interaction before, or maybe they just don't know what to say, or maybe they're in their white shame. When people from the white community learn about all the atrocities and all the prejudice and all the racism, and they witness firsthand, and they wake up to the injustice, and they're finally fully conscious within that reality, a lot of times white people experience white shame. And so as soon as they see that aggression, they immediately revert to like, oh my God, oh my. And they won't investigate further. But it needs to be investigated. When you see somebody just standing there, sometimes they might have that aggressiveness with their friends, but if you got out the car, got out and said, good morning, good afternoon, a lot of times people are going to say, oh, good morning. They might keep talking amongst themselves the way that they're talking, but they're not going to talk to you sideways. They don't know you. They don't have a reason to do that. Most people won't talk to you crazy because you haven't done anything to them. That's just who they are when they're among certain peer members. But the communication, I'm not saying don't be who you are. I'm not saying change who you are. What I'm saying is watch your communication. If you change the way you communicate, if you change your body language, the words, the language, the style, the volume, etc., if you change this, and you're aware of the verbal and the nonverbal, and the direct and indirect forms of your communication, and the circles in which you do them, I think interactions can go a little bit more smoothly. Now, you're going to have racist people and prejudiced people always. But sometimes a positive interaction can undo some of the indoctrination that's happening. They start to question it. They start waking up, asking more questions, wanting more positive interaction before they finally get that up. But what they have to see, my beloved brothers and sisters, my beloved Black people, my beloved dear Black people, what they need to see from the community is consistent communication that doesn't tank itself. Because from the outside looking in, people can see there's issues. People can see there's hatred within. It's hatred within. And, there's going to be hatred and issues anywhere. Anywhere you have people together, there's going to be always someone that doesn't like someone else for no good reason, but they just don't like them. And someone that always wants to create some mess. But that doesn't mean the other person has to engage. The other person can distance themselves. They can communicate peace. They can say, you don't like me, and that's okay. And I don't know if I like you either because we don't really interact. But I'm going to leave you be and you leave me be, and that's that. It doesn't have to be all this back and forth. It doesn't have to be all this aggression and chaos. Chaos creates confusion, and confusion creates aggression, and aggression creates misunderstanding and trouble. We need to look from within. We can't fix, brothers and sisters, we cannot fix what's coming at us. What people project onto the community. But what we can do is we can protect and project what we want them to see outward to them. But we have to clean it up. We seriously have to clean it up, people. And I say this with the utmost respect and complete love for you. Because, man, I can see it. I can see what the man was talking about. I can see it. Communication is everything. But when you communicate anything, whether it's direct, indirect, verbal, nonverbal, you have to think of your audience. What will they see? Because they bring in their whole worldview, all of their prior experiences, all of their education or non-education, everything they've been through in life. They're bringing that with them. So you have to consider, consider what they've been through. Consider your audience and break it down to them appropriately, because not everybody's going to get you straight out the gate. Some people are going to need a little more steps because their mind just don't work the same as yours. Consider your audience. Break it down. Communicate with that in mind. Consider the possibility that this person might have been indoctrinated with negative and false assumptions and stereotypes. And they're reaching out. In their own way, they're reaching out to test these miseducated notions. And if the response within the Black community is a negative one or reinforces that, then we got a problem. We got a problem. Be the kings and queens that I know you to be. Be the point of light. Be that person that can look at the situation and say, you know what, I see what this could be. Don't just assume that because it's a white person or somebody that is not part of the Black community, don't just assume, hey, this person wants to undermine the Black community. One person cannot undermine an entire community of individuals, especially if that entire community of individuals is networking and working together in unity. Do you hear me? And I say this with deep love and respect. Because, brothers and sisters, I am on your side, I am on your team. I am here to say the good, the bad, the ugly, and the indifferent. I am here to let you know observations and current news events and all sorts of different things. We were looking at the shootings at church. This is going to be my final thought. And a lot of them were the mass shootings done by white people. And then there's a Chicago one done by a Black man, but it was 9 people that got injured. And there was 1 or 2 specific targets that evening. and everybody else was just an unfortunate circumstance. An unfortunate, there was a line of fire in messing up the objective. And the funny thing is the news will report and drop the story about 20-some people being murdered by another white person. They'll report it and drop it. And then maybe if there's charges or sentencing, they might come back to it. But daily, the news will report anything negative within the Black community for days on end, drilling it in, indoctrinating, impregnating your mind with those images. Think about the subliminal messaging that's taking place, even within our media. It's negative communication. It's a scare tactic. It's a means of control. And then our law enforcement, they interact. They see the news. They're being trained to overcome these barriers and to be more culturally aware and to be more responsive and less trigger happy within the community. They're working hard to change these things. It's not going to happen overnight because there's continued programming within the system. And there's skewed perceptions that's only presenting one side or one potential possibility of effect in the case. And it's repeated and drilled in over and over and over again. And these officers, they interact with that. We have 90 seconds left in our show. And I'm not saying the officers are right. I'm not saying law enforcement is right. Sometimes they make bad choices. They do their best. And I'm not saying I'm against them. I'm not saying I'm for them. What I'm saying is that I do believe that law enforcement in the Black community has some changes and some bridge mending to do. I think that there are things that can be done to bridge that gap and to repair the relationship. And it's not going to happen overnight. And there's always going to be the bad apple, the bad seed. However, my brothers and sisters, how are you communicating? What impression are you leaving on your audiences? Whether direct or indirect. Straighten up your faces. Fix your crowns, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be praying for you, with you, and I hope that you find this message and you see that there's always an ounce of truth to everything. Take the perspective and the perspectives as you want, and know that it comes from a place of love. I'm sorry if I've ruffled any feathers, but it was meant to be. Bye.
You're listening to another Perspective Talk Show.
Shadow. Radio.
This show is brought to you by Rebirth Radio.